I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's 6:07, and I am looking around, and I've determined that we do have a quorum here this evening. And welcome everybody who's with us here tonight live and also virtually. And we're going to go ahead and move down to item number 1 on our special meeting agenda, which is our public comment forum. And in this instance, those public comments have been submitted previously, and those are going to be read into the record now. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Alan Brugman. I'm the Communications Officer for Wimberley ISD. We have 32 public comments that were submitted. I do want to note that anytime an instance of a board member's name or a school district employee's name is mentioned, we're going to tweak those for the red portion of this. Board members will be referred to as official, and employees will be referred to just as employee. I'll start off by reading the name as submitted and then followed by the comment. Number 1 was, and these are going to be read in the order that they were submitted. Number 1 is from Chris Ellis. The school logo should be used for school purposes and only school purposes. Any other group or groups need to develop their own logo and make it their own. That is why logos are copyrighted, so you can make them your own. Leave the school district logo to serve its purpose for Wimberley ISD. Other groups need to spend a little money and copyright their own logo for their specific purpose. The Wimberley ISD logo needs to be left alone and not changed. Number 2 is Will Francis, representing the National Association of Social Workers, Texas Chapter. The National Association of Social Workers, Texas Chapter strongly supports inclusivity in the education setting and believes that it extends to LGBTQ students, staff, and parents. LGBTQ youth are at a greater risk to be bullied, have identified more mental health issues related to environments that are not supportive, and are at greater risk of suicide. For these and many other reasons, schools need to welcome these students, and no one should be punished or reprimanded for both affirming the identity of these youth and showing that there are allies and safe spaces for them to turn to. We hope that the board puts in place policies and staff development that will provide a better understanding for how to engage with LGBTQ youth and help them as they develop and grow in their schools and communities. Number 3, Darren K. Mazur. It is my opinion that the Wimberley WT flag logo should not be altered in any way. In my line of business, I serve many schools, including Wimberley ISD. In all cases, the school's logos are protected to be used in the manner in which they were designed. The Wimberley flag logo is no different. It should be in the school colors and not modified. The proportions and colors of the logo should remain the same. For example, I can't print the Hutto Hippo in camo or maroon ink or glitter gold. It is only to be printed in burnt orange and white. I totally understand that all students, parents, and community members see this logo with a sense of pride, and that lends itself to being something groups would like to use and alter. But the logo was developed for the school's activities and organizations, and for students and faculty as well as community. It is integral that it represents the school, an event for the school, a graduating class, or year. If my son is going to college and he asks me to print the WT logo in his college school colors on a t-shirt, for example, black and gold, I can't do that. I take pride in what this logo means to our district, what it has meant to my kids who've all played sports and participated in great events for the school, and it needs to remain with the school intact and not altered. Texan pride. Thank you. Number 4 is Kathleen Healy. It is time for Logogate to end. The district has wasted more than enough time and expense in the pursuit of the oppression of our LGBTQ students. The board should understand that official simply acted in joyful support of this marginalized, oppressed community when she posted the picture of the altered logo, and the ACLU became involved because the district simply would not let it go. It is time to let it go and get on with supporting all students, employees, staff, teachers, counselors, and board members of this district. Number 5, Anna Wynn. My name is Anna Wynn. I live in Austin, Texas. As you go about your official business today, please think about what you will tell your children and grandchildren now and years from now about what you did when the time came to make a stand for inclusiveness, for compassion, for how much we have in common. What will you tell them about what you did when the time came to make a stand against exploitation of small differences that make us individuals, to make a stand against efforts to drive the community apart, to make a stand against hate and bigotry? What will you tell your children and grandchildren? Number 6, Sean and Christina Stover. Our strong belief, based on decades of community and corporate involvement, is that logos are central to the identity of any group or organization. In the case of a school district, the logo is crucial to the identity of the school, its faculty, its administration, and its students. No group, agenda, or individual should be allowed to alter or use the logo in any way. Whether a Christian organization, local business, public cause, or inclusive agenda, no one should be able to alter or modify the existing school logo for their benefit. Again, we clearly understand and believe that the Wimberley Texan logo is established and is not changeable. Number 7, Heiko Stang. Thank you, members of the WISD Board of Trustees, to hear my public comment. When the unnecessary controversy about the Wimberley Texan logo started back in September of 2019, my immediate reaction was that it would have been best if WISD had had the foresight and courage and had endorsed Wimberley's first annual Pride March as a public expression of support for all the students without exceptions. But this had not happened. The second best option would have been to retroactively support the event, but this did not happen either. Instead, our entire community got entangled in a prolonged and painful conflict based on an insincere and unfounded complaint about the use of the Wimberley Texan logo. A highly regarded member of the Board of Trustees was made the target of a divisive and exclusionary agenda. The homophobic motivations of the grievance filed last fall became clear through the involvement of, quote, Texas Values, an outside organization known for such divisive tactics. As a taxpayer, I am highly concerned about these events and the financial toll it took on WISD. As a father of 3 young children who are or will all attend WISD schools over the next decade, I am especially worried by attempts to undermine the well-being of all children and to weaken our rights of free speech and the separation of church and state. The WISD community should be able to make fair use of the logo without the fear of a lawsuit. Although I have never used the logo in any form myself, I call for the retraction of employees' threat of legal action against those who have used the logo for non-commercial purposes under the First Amendment protections of free speech. Thank you. Number 8 is Lydia Brasher. I am writing in support of the WISD School Board preserving the Wimberley Texan logo and protecting/defending it from being altered by any person, business, club, group, or otherwise. As a former marketing and brand professional, and really just as a person who lives in the world, I honestly cannot believe this is still a topic the school board is having to address. Next. Number 9 is Patricia Crove. The way in which this logo fiasco was handled by the WISD has turned back the curtain on the lack of fairness and transparency by the WISD and shown a blatant disregard and discrimination towards the LGBTQ people in the WISD, as well as in our community. After the stunning response by the district on their displeasure of the logo bearing the LGBTQ rainbow and the entire follow-up of targeting and harassment to many in the community that received letters about using the logo, an apology is in order from the WISD to those people. I continue to see the logo displayed with religious symbols, with unborn babies in the womb, and yet it is a rainbow that has caused the WISD distress. The LGBTQ community is a living, breathing human group of valued people that should be given the respect and consideration by WISD. Stop your shameful behavior, welcome and acknowledge the parents, teachers, and students that represent our LGBTQ community. Apologize and be accepting to all, no matter what their color, religion, or sexual orientation is. Stop the discrimination now, please. Thank you for your consideration with this request. 10, Sherry Skaggs. I would like to express our support for protection of the Wimberley Texan District logo. No individual or group should have the ability to change or modify the district logo. Number 11, Masha Davis. As adults in the school district, it is our privilege, but also our duty to be examples to our children. They are the future of the district, of the county, of the state, of the country, of the world. What we instill in them today will one day have consequences far beyond our school district. They will be our legacy to the district and well beyond. Please instill in them values that will make them positive, tolerant, and compassionate citizens. Thank you. Number 12, Jared Robinson. WISD Board. I'm writing about the issues surrounding the WISD logo discussion and its unauthorized use. I want to be very clear that my stance on this issue is only about the unauthorized logo use. It doesn't matter to me who used, what it was used for, or for what reason it was used. The only fact I have is it was unauthorized use. Previously, I was involved with a nonprofit organization located in Wimberley that asked for permission to use the current WISD logo. That request was denied by WISD, and we chose a different logo to be used for our organization, which was drawn by a former WISD student. We were disappointed we could not use the current logo, but we're happy with the product we received from this former student. Fast forward to current times, you now have use of the logo without permission or consent. I believe that this situation could have been avoided with a simple phone call or email to WISD. That appears it was not done, but rather taken upon a group or individual to use the logo or its image without permission or consent. As I did many years ago, I requested its use, was denied the permission to use the logo, and decided on an alternate. No issues were created and no feelings were hurt by simple emails and calls that were exchanged. In a similar situation, a request to use the Houston Texans logo has been denied more than I could count. I also understand the current logo has been authorized to use by local businesses. The key word in that is authorized. They requested the use of the logo and were given permission. For whatever reason that permission was given is irrelevant, but the fact is they requested and were given permission to use the current logo. In my opinion, again, this situation could have been avoided by simple communication requesting use. If that request was denied and in turn not used, we would not be here today discussing this issue. 13, Lacey Thames. I believe the Wimberley Texans logo should not be allowed to be altered in any way by any club, group, or organization. The Texan logo alone represents the district's desire to foster a culture of kindness and respect. There's no need for it to be altered for any specific groups. 14, Tina Cannon. The First Amendment protects people's right to express their views, including online and at public events like a Pride March. Government entities cannot chill their speech, retaliate against them, or discriminate based on the content of their speech. 15, Matt Meeks. Dear Board of Trustees, I'm writing this to show support for the current WT logo. The logo is our brand and represents all of what Texan pride is about. The logo doesn't discriminate. It is a symbol of what we as Wimberley Texans represent as a whole. It is not limited to athletics, academics, band, theater, color of skin, religion, etc. It unites us all that live in this community and has kept us strong in our darkest hours as well as in our greatest of achievements. I would like us all to take a step back and think about how much we have grown together through these last few months. And if we have learned anything, it should be we are all in this together. The logo is our brand and should be a symbol of unity and help us continue to achieve excellence in all aspects. Changing the logo, in my opinion, is dividing the great spirit that so many of my fellow classmates have worked so hard to build. Please work together, and if you need a common ground, you shouldn't have to look much further than the WT logo. Thank you all for what you do for our kids in this community. Matt Meeks, Wimberley ISD graduate, class of 98. 16, Marissa Thaler. I realize the board has no choice but to review the now level 3 grievance regarding the rainbow logo. Here we are in a time of COVID crisis, and those who hate continue to show their lack of support for the LGBTQ community, most importantly, the youth of our community. Stop this. Stop wasting the board's time, the community's money, and your own energy. With Equality Texas and ACLU close by, you will not succeed with your goals. You will not punish families or students. I would say you won't win here, but there is no win. There is either support for a community or there's not. There's a cherry picking of the rules when it offends you. The whole world is watching us, a world that is more accepting of the LGBTQ community than ever. More kids and families supportive of choosing love. There is only a show of love or a show of hate. 17 is Robert Salcido Jr. from Equality, Texas. Hello, Board of Trustees and Wimberley ISD administration. My name is Robert Salcido, Community Outreach and Engagement Manager at Equality Texas. As written in our letter to employee and the Board of Trustees dated February 10th, 2020, creating supportive and affirming environments in our schools that allow all children, including LGBTQ students, to focus on learning and academic success rather than bullying and their sense of safety is our collective goal. As the leading LGBTQ advocacy organization in Texas, we are concerned about the message Wimberley students have received. We would like to once again offer our organization, Equality Texas, as a positive resource for Wimberley ISD to help bring forward LGBTQ inclusive policies and staff development. We urge WISD to consider a meeting with Equality Texas to discuss how we can collectively work together to make the school district safer and more affirming for your LGBTQ students and the parents who support their LGBTQ children. I can be reached at robert.salcido@equalitytexas.org. In community, Robert Salcido Jr. 18 is Kate Sitton. I write today as a concerned citizen to ask you close and settle any and all legal suits, grievances, and/or disciplinary actions concerning the use and altering of the WISD logo for Wimberley's Pride Parade in 2019. Whether intentional or not, your response to board member official wearing a shirt with the WISD logo with a rainbow flag sent the message to our LGBTQ children that they are, quote, less than and are not supported by the district. In fact, your language in the initial letter to parents stated as much when employee wrote, quote, it would suggest to the viewer that WISD endorses the group's activities. As we all now know, the initial complaint was brought by an individual who herself was using and altering the logos of international organizations to sell for her personal business. Again, what message does this send to our LGBTQ students when a person who believes it's okay for herself to alter a logo without permission files a complaint when a rainbow is added to the district logo as part of a celebration of gay pride? Any suit against a person who alters or displays the logo for an event such as the Pride Parade is frivolous. According to the U.S. Copyright Office, quote, fair use is a legal doctrine that promotes freedom of expression by permitting the unlicensed use of copyright protected works in certain circumstances. Section 107 of the Copyright Act provides the statutory framework for determining whether something is a fair use and identifies certain types of uses, such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research, as examples of activities that may qualify as fair use, close quote. I believe it is time that the district stop its efforts to infringe on the First Amendment rights of individuals and bring this issue to rest. Prove that you support our LGBTQ students and that WISD truly is no place for hate. Number 19, Lisa Weeks. The WT logo is a representation of the Wimberley Texans school system and is the logo associated with all activities involving the entire Wimberley school system. Should not be used by any other specific group for any purposes or altered in any way. The use of this logo by different groups would cause an association that is not endorsed by the school or is not a representation of the WISD. It is my opinion it should remain strictly as a school logo, regardless if it is something I support or something I do not. I have had 2 boys graduate from WHS and now a daughter entering as a freshman. We as a family have always been proud to wear the WT in support of our school. We have had people all over recognize the logo and make some sort of comment about the Wimberley Texans. It would be a shame to represent anything other than the Wimberley Texans. Number 20 is Jeff Burke. We, the alumni of this school, are here to object to those special interest groups who would randomly change the image, identity, logo, flag, or name of our school. This school belongs to all the people through all the years of its existence, not just the small insignificant who took a unilateral action to change the identity of hundreds of thousands who identify with this school. We will use all legal force at our disposal to enforce our rights to keep our school logo from being taken over by people who themselves have identity issues. 21, Cynthia Milonzi. On December 19th, 2020, I received a, quote, notice from the superintendent of schools, close quote, via email issued by employee. Although the employee states this is not a cease and desist letter, it in fact is, and the document threatens further legal action against me if I post the Texan logo with the rainbow overlay on social media or in print. To say I was surprised by the email would be an understatement, but I took the threat issued by the employee seriously and immediately scheduled a consult with a copyright/trademark attorney. As an individual who works in the arts, I take copyright matters seriously, and as such, I have studied copyright law. Although not an attorney, I am more aware than many of copyright infringement. My assessment that I was not in violation of the law was confirmed by the attorney I consulted. My posting of the logo to my social media page for a few days during Pride was a show of support for not only the LGBTQIA+ community to which I belong, but also display of love, acceptance, tolerance, and unity for the entire community. The fact that the employee spent paid time scouring social media to see who posted the logo is egregious. I'm not a parent and my social media page is not public, so employees' efforts towards me took some significant effort. I have many friends who also showed support on their social media pages in the same manner, and they did not receive the letter. Additionally, I sent a public records request to the district about the email that was sent, and their response was, let us just say, less than responsive and transparent. They've gone to great lengths to keep from disclosing who received the correspondence issued by employee. We could go around and around about the logo, but I will refrain, and I will leave the legal wrangling to the lawyers. I would point out there were no issues with any other use of the logo until the rainbow version, and no copyright or trademark to infringe upon. What this situation has done for me personally is uncover a higher degree of discrimination in my community than I had previously thought, but more importantly, the level of discrimination at the higher levels in the school district. I'm an adult. I can handle it most of the time, but the impact to our youth is much more important to me. It is clear to me that some of the members of this board, whether consciously or not, have brought personal biases to the table, and the subsequent actions of this body over the logo are merely the demonstration of those biases. My heart breaks. Many of our youth live in fear daily, and it is clear why. There is a culture in the district that perpetuates and permeates a fear of those who are different. I heard our courageous youth who had the intestinal fortitude to finally come speak at a board meeting. Their courage in the face of intolerance was inspirational. Our youth should not be afraid to come to school. This is not a way to live, learn, grow, and thrive. It is your job to provide a safe, conducive learning environment. Even if we do not agree on things, our ability to demonstrate a better way to work through differences is how leaders set the example. The district leadership should be setting a better example. I request that the legal actions threatened against me and others be dropped. I also request that the employee issue a formal apology specifically to the LGBTQIA community and their allies, and that it be clearly posted to the front page of the WISD website for a minimum of 6 months. I have personally offered my support to the school district to be part of an advisory group or committee that could help work on some of the seemingly sensitive or challenging issues. Although I've not been contacted for such support, my offer is and remains standing. Together we can accomplish anything with dignity and respect for each other. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Cynthia Milonzi. 22 is Doug Warren. 8 years ago, I was entrusted by WISD to lead what I believe is the best athletic department in the best school district in the state of Texas. I've tried to do what is in the best interest of the student athletes here at WISD, and although I don't always succeed, I know that we have put our best foot forward. No one in this district uses the Texan logo more than me. I cannot tell you how many t-shirts, jerseys, helmets, and workout clothes in the past 8 years that I've used the Texan logo on. Through these 8 years, it has become more than just a logo. To me, it is a symbol of pride, determination, and heart. Our logo is Texan pride. This logo distinguishes us from any school in the state, and when people see it, automatically they think of Wimberley. They think of the great schools that we have, the outstanding academics that we are known for, and the wonderful community that we live in. Just this past spring, I turned down a semi-pro football team that wanted to use our logo on their helmets in a Central Texas semi-pro football league. I didn't do this because I didn't believe in their cause. I did it because it is the Texan logo and it is special. This past December in AT&T Stadium, I was overcome with emotion when the Wimberley Texans took the field, not because of the magnitude of the game, but because of the great showing of unity for the Wimberley Texans. For that moment, our differences were put aside and all of us were together pulling in the same direction. That is what this community is about. The Texan logo should never be a sign of controversy, but rather a sign of pride, a sign of great memories, and a sign that no matter what our differences, we are all Wimberley Texans, all of us. 23, Heather Carter. So much has happened since September, but one thing that has not happened regarding the Texan Pride logo is closure. What we have been waiting for is for WISD to admit it made a mistake and that this mistake has caused harm in our community and created fear among our students and families involved. Hindsight is indeed 2020. Looking back at what could have happened, I realize how much time, energy, and public funds we have collectively lost due to a few people's intolerance of the rainbow flag. Here's what could have happened. 1. WISD could have followed in the supportive and inclusive footsteps of SMISD or AISD and created a rainbow version of its logo themselves to show support for and solidarity with a marginalized group of students. 2. WISD could have, after realizing that others had created the Pride Week logo for them, embraced the rainbow version and let the students and families that wanted to wear it proudly just wear it. 3. WISD could have looked into its policy regarding the use of the logo and made sure it was not being discriminatory about its use before releasing the first email blast threatening and misrepresenting the district's control and ownership of the logo. 4. After realizing their mistake in not doing number 3, the district could have apologized and acknowledged the fair use aspect of the Pride logo and not doubled down on their message of intolerance. By continuing to send threatening letters to those that shared the logo online, the district further violated the First Amendment rights of those displaying it. 5. The unnecessary escalations made by the district are the reason we are here today. An open records request showed that there were no agreements between the district and the Texan Car Wash or the district and Ace Hardware, which are businesses that make money using modified and unmodified versions of the district logo. WISD could have at the very beginning realized they had no precedent to claim ownership or control of usage rights of this logo. Unfortunately, WISD spent and is still spending public dollars defending its position to be selective and discriminatory regarding the singular use of the logo. I sincerely hope that today marks the end of this black mark on the district. Let's put an end to the threats. Let's hear an apology for the district's missteps, and let's see the district take responsibility and be a good model for our kids of what it takes to admit you're wrong and make it right. We are a #NoPlaceForHate. We are supportive of our LGBTQ students and families. We want students to have the same rights as our staff in WISD discrimination policy, and we want the district to acknowledge and allow the use of the rainbow version of the logo during Pride Week as a symbol of solidarity and support for this marginalized group. Thank you for your time and service. 24 is Rebecca Marquet, Human Rights Campaign. Dear employee and Board of Trustees, the Human Rights Campaign, HRC, America's largest civil rights organization working to achieve lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ equality, thanks you for the opportunities to submit comments in support of efforts to advocate for LGBTQ inclusive school district policies and practices. Because youth spend the majority of their time at school, school district policies and students' experiences at school have a critical impact on the health and well-being of young people. Fostering safe and inclusive learning environments for all students, including LGBTQ students, helps give every pupil an equal chance to reach their full potential and succeed. Sadly, LGBTQ students are disproportionately the target of bullying and discrimination. According to recent research by HRC and the University of Connecticut, only 26% of LGBTQ youth report that they always feel safe in the classroom, and only 13% report hearing positive messages about being LGBTQ in school. Moreover, according to the 2017 National School Climate Survey, over 87% of LGBTQ students report experiencing harassment or assault at school because of their personal characteristics. These alarming statistics demand immediate action. We urge you to redirect your resources to the development and implementation of LGBTQ inclusive school district policies and practices. Every student deserves to learn in a safe and accepting school environment. And ensuring that all students, including those who identify as LGBTQ, have an equal opportunity to succeed is the best investment we can make in our future. Sincerely, Rebecca Marquet, HRC Texas State Director. 25, Lindsay Derringer. WISD board members, thank you for allowing us to speak even though we are not able to attend the meeting. I appreciate all that you do for our children, especially now during these uncertain times. Our shared care for our students is why I'm writing to you now. I know you all care about our students, but I think that sometimes it is hard to see perspectives that are different from our own. This logo issue has negatively affected our community, our students, and our propensity for inclusiveness. I've heard multiple families say that since all this happened, they have considered moving away from Wimberley. I've been saddened by the way this issue has been handled. The LGBTQ community is here to stay, and we should welcome them just like we welcome all people, not turn away when they request help and inclusion. Your public mandate is for our whole community, not select groups that you identify with. I am quoting the WISD anti-harassment statement. Quote, the Wimberley Independent School District prohibits acts of harassment of any kind, including harassment based on race, color, religion, gender, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, national origin, disability, or any other conduct prohibited by law, including bullying or harassment carried out via electric forms of communication, close quote. I do not understand why 4 of you voted to go against matching this in our school policy. What will it hurt? It will not hurt anyone. It will only protect the vulnerable. My last comment is about the quick way that emails are sent out. I think there should be some accountability and a multi-step process involving several levels of people when sending out district-wide emails and messages. There have been a few hasty emails that have been sent out, it seems, without much review. I ask that you all reconsider your vote as well as issue a public apology to those who have been affected by this situation. As adults, it is our responsibility to teach our students how to right a wrong. Thank you for your time and your service. Lindsay Derringer, WISD parent. 26 is David Wayman. I'm commenting as a taxpayer to Wimberley ISD School District. My wife and I attended the Wimberley Pride Parade to show support to the LGBTQ community as allies, and we're overjoyed to see so many people rallying around a message of love and acceptance. It was a beautiful and joy-filled evening. We would like to see a 180-degree response from WISD in the next Pride March. We would like to see WISD march along with CAPS to show their support of all students. We would also like to see this rainbow Wimberley Texan logo shared on t-shirts, flags, and banners, and proceeds of any sales to go to teacher, administrator, and student training in empathy, bullying, tolerance, and social emotional learning. WISD should embrace this as a teachable moment and make their schools safe and accepting places for all students. We believe this is the only action that will right the wrongs over this obvious homophobic response that is being covered as a copyright issue. Please spend taxpayer money on empathy and tolerance training instead of on frivolous lawsuits regarding the copyright of school logos. Please settle this grievance. 27 is Gabby Perez. As the day of my graduation from Wimberley High School nears, I can't help but reflect upon all I have learned throughout my 4 long years sitting in those hallowed halls. I will remember all of the beautiful things, like how I felt under the massive stadium lights, whether it be while leading my soccer team as a captain or by watching our victorious football team win prestige and accolades for our small town this year. I'll remember how amazing it was to learn new and exciting things from teachers I'll never forget, and I'll remember all of the fantastic friends I've met along the way. However, this beautiful picture I've painted in my mind of experience so utterly amazing will forever be marred by a school district on a rampage to distance themselves from another version of a homage to Texan pride. What should have been a non-issue, another innocent expression of Texan pride, has shifted my perception of my once revered school district from one of pride to be part of this community to one of embarrassment. The issue, an altered Texan pride logo, was not the issue, evident by countless alterations present in town, which no reprimand was needed. But the issue was the correlation between WISD and a pro-LGBTQIA plus agenda. I'm utterly disgusted that WISD would take such unprecedented and drastic measures to protect itself from being associated with the LGBTQIA plus community's acceptance. Employee, history will not be on your side in fighting this issue. It is up to you. Do the right thing. After all, you are not the student who has to endure bullying, homophobia, transphobia, and death threats within the WHS walls. Please do it for them. Be courageous. All of the people that you are attempting to villainize are no different than you. They are concerned parents, grandparents, friends, and teachers, just like you, trying to do right and protect their children. It would be diabolical for you to go forward with this lawsuit. Could you sleep at night knowing you ruin the lives of folks just trying to stand up for children's lives? If you need someone to stop you in the finalization of this lawsuit, let it be me, Gabriela Perez, Wimberley High School graduate class of 2020, varsity soccer captain, top 10% student. I want to be proud of my alma mater. 28 is Armando Perez. Dear WISD school board members, I am the proud father of a top 10% ranked Wimberley senior class of 2020. Level 3 grievance appeal regarding district logo. Our community needs assurance that this school board is committed to the safety of all children. Please reconsider your discriminatory practices around the use of the Texan logo. Your post-Pride Parade logo policy sends a clear message that WISD does not value all students. I would also like clarification on employees' statement allowing Christian students to bully, harass, and threaten members of any marginalized group they feel might threaten their Christian beliefs. Is this now official school policy? Quote, every single time I would report homophobic bullying, I was told by employee it was their right as Christians to call me a expletive, said WISD student, close quote. Thank you, Armando. 29 is Autumn Keese. Hello, my name is Autumn Keese. I'm a mother of 3 WISD students and taxpayer in Wimberley supporting WISD. I'm writing this letter in support of my community of Wimberley with a focus on our LGBTQ community, mainly our at-risk youth. It is truly disheartening that an innocent display of support and solidarity has turned into a situation of hate and shame, something our LGBTQ community deals with regularly already. A trend we are determined to be rid of for all people. The real damage regarding the logo has already been done, and there are no real winners. In hopes of no such further damage, I am requesting at minimum that employee rescind his previous letter to the public regarding the logo and a formal apology issued to official. Let's do our best. Let's all support and show kindness and understanding to all walks of life, whether we agree with them or not. I'm confident that this community has the intelligence and generosity to prevail. Thank you for your time. 30, Jolie Templer. First, I'd like to say a big thank you to all the wonderful teachers, administrators, and staff for their caring support and work during the past months. They have been great in helping our students and us parents deal with crisis schooling at home. It was obvious how much they all truly care about the kids and how they are doing. Several times, teachers reached out and made sure that the kids were doing okay and reminded us parents to relax, make sure the kids are emotionally and mentally all right, and if need be, put school off a little. Obviously, they were not saying the kids didn't need to do their work, but that their mental and emotional health comes first. Sadly, 8 months ago, the WISD board missed an opportunity to reflect that same caring for our students. Since then, the opportunity has been missed several more times and made worse by the actions taken by our board. When students made shirts with their school logo on it and the rainbow flag behind it, it was not done for profit or in malice. It was done in pride. Pride in who they are and or their friends and family are. Pride in their community, pride in their school. What was the WISD board reaction? A threatening letter about using the logo in this manner. Why they chose to react this way, I don't know. Open records have shown that there was not proper ownership of the logo, and businesses that have altered it other for profit ways had no contracts and were not threatened with lawsuits. This was a fair use logo. Today will hopefully be the end to this embarrassing fiasco. It has negatively impacted our kids, caused division among peers and in our community. It has wasted thousands of our school district's dollars that should have gone to positive projects in our schools. It is time to truly support all of us. As for report cards, I give an F for board goals number 3, foster a culture of kindness and respect, F for board goal number 5, make a positive community impact, and an F for board goals number 6, student safety and well-being. I know we are better than this and will do better than this. I sincerely hope that next year I'll be able to discuss the issue of hair dye instead of having to stand up for children that should automatically be protected and cared for like everyone else. Thank you for your time, and let's be the role models that are needed and stay a hashtag no place for hate. 31 is Claudia Perez. I'm a concerned parent that has become publicly active in the community to assure that social justice and equality is served. I've been a taxpayer for Wimberley ISD for almost 15 years. My daughters have attended the district for the past 8 years. Many organizations have used the school logo throughout the years. I was surprised by the email from an employee on September 24, 2019, stating the logo policy. I was also surprised that he could not share any evidence that other organizations had followed the same logo policy that he was asking for all of us to adhere to after the WISD logo with the rainbow. Students and teachers in Wimberley ISD need to know that their administration supports them. When leaders do not stand for equality and justice, the people will have to. That is what has happened in the Wimberley community, Hayes County, and quite honestly, the world. The quote, logo gate has gone worldwide. I'm speaking for those that can't stand up for themselves for fear of retaliation and aggression from administration and fellow students. I highly encourage for WISD to consider participating in next year's Wimberley Pride Parade. The email sent by an employee was not about a t-shirt. It was about not standing by the LGBTQ plus community that, like it or not, inhabit the halls of Wimberley ISD. In order to truly be a no place for hate school, Wimberley ISD should stand by the principles of the ADL and respect and protect all students from hate. I can assure you that parents want the best for their kids. The number one priority for parents used to be education, but unfortunately it has now shifted to a matter of safety. What I want is for the safety of the LGBTQ student community, equality, justice for all, and freedom of speech. I ask the board to support the kids. Claudia Perez. 32, Adrian Mountfield. Hello, my name is Adrian Mountfield. I am the aunt of 3 WISD students. I'm writing this letter in support of my community of Wimberley with a focus on our LGBTQ community, mainly our at-risk youth. It is truly disheartening that an innocent display of support and solidarity has turned into a situation of hate and shame, something our LGBTQ community deals with regularly already, a trend we are determined to be rid of for all people. The real damage regarding the logo has already been done, and there are no real winners. In hopes of no such further damage, I am requesting at minimum that employee rescind his previous letter to the public regarding the logo and a formal apology issued to official. Let's do our best. Let's all support and show kindness and understanding to all walks of life, whether we agree with them or not. I am confident that this community has the intelligence and generosity to prevail. Thank you for your time. That concludes the public comments.
Thank you, Alan. Returning now to our agenda. On the board's agenda is a level 3 parent grievance appeal. The board will hear this appeal in open session as requested by the grievant. Board action, if any, will also be taken in open session. Prior to the grievance presentation, the board will meet in closed session to consult with legal counsel. After the grievance presentation, the board will also meet in closed session to deliberate and consult with legal counsel. Closed session will be convened in accordance with Texas Government Code sections 551.071 and 551.0821. It's now 6:50, and the board will go into closed session to consult with legal counsel. It's now 7:27 p.m. and the board is back in open session and will hear the grievance appeal. A quorum of the board is present to hear the grievance appeal. If a board member believes that he or she cannot be fair to each party or render a decision solely on the record, please state your name and recuse yourself at this time. Will the grievant and his representatives identify themselves for the record, followed by the administration and its representatives? Also present is the board's attorney, Oscar G. Trevino.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Klosterbor. I am the attorney for the ACLU of Texas and also for Mr. Brian Burke. I'm joined by my co-counsel, Adriana Pinon, and Mr. Burke is also on the Zoom.
I am Brian Burke. I am the one that has brought forth the level 3 grievance.
My name is Michael Smith. I am with the Fowler Law Firm, and I was retained to represent the administration during this grievance, both at level 2 and now at level 3. And we have Superintendent Dwayne York with us.
Thank you. In this appeal, the board will first hear from the grievant and then the administration. Each party will have 15 minutes to make their presentation.
Now 7:27 p.m.
At the conclusion
Back
of the
in open session. and will hear the grievance appeal. The quorum of the board is present to hear the grievance appeal. If a board member believes that he or she cannot be fair to each party or render a decision solely on the record, please state your name and recuse yourself at this time.
Mr. Burke, I'm going to let
The YouTube stream is currently on his computer.
Mr. Burke, I think the YouTube stream is on your computer and it's creating an echo.
It looks like he's on mute now. Yeah, I think if we all stay on mute when we're not speaking, that should help.
I'm sorry, what was that?
When the speakers speak, and maybe put.
You want that to be full? Okay, so go to speaker view and get rid of the make your thing small.
Yeah, I think I hear someone mentioning the speaker view, which may be helpful. And I also had a question of whether I'll be able to engage in the screen sharing during a small part of my presentation.
Can you speak that, Mr. Miller?
Mr. Trevino, could you please advise on that?
This is Oscar Trevino, Board Counsel. I visited with those. I'm sorry, this is a little disorienting in terms of the views. Can you hear me? Okay. Mr. Kochbauer, I've visited with the Board Counsel, and the board is going to follow policy FNG, and they're not going to allow the introduction of any documents. We'll simply refer, if you will, to the level 2 record.
No problem. Does every board member have the grievance documents in front of them?
Yes, sir.
Great.
The board has been provided with the record. The board president will call it out in a few minutes, including the audio conference at level 2.
Thank you.
If I may continue. In this appeal, the board will first hear from the grievant and then the administration. Each party will have 15 minutes to make their presentation. At the conclusion of the presentation, each side will have an additional 5 minutes to offer any rebuttal or closing remarks. The board secretary will serve as the timekeeper on the presentations and will inform the parties of their time. The board has been provided with a copy of the level 2 grievance record, which includes the filed grievance form with 2 attached letters, audio recording and or transcript of the level 2 conference, level 2 response, and level 3 appeal form. No new facts or documents will be considered by the board during this appeal. The parties are to address the board and not each other. The board will listen to the presentations, but will not be subject to questions from the parties. At the conclusion of the presentations, the board may ask questions of the parties for further clarification of the issues. Any procedural questions should be directed to the board president. One thing I'd like to add to clarify is that the Grievance Council has requested the right to introduce some additional exhibits that were not part of the level 2 grievance record. Due to the FNG policy, we're not going to be able to accommodate this request. Are there any questions regarding the hearing or the process? Hearing none, I would ask that Mr. Burke may now begin his grievance presentation at 7:32 p.m.
Thank you, everyone. So I'll be speaking as Mr. Burke's attorney. And once again, my name is Brian Klosterbor, and it's good to be with you on virtually tonight. And I wish we could be together in person, but thank you for taking time to hear our grievance. As most of you know from reading the papers in front of you, Mr. Burke is a resident of Wimberley and also the proud parent of an LGBTQ student in Wimberley schools. The issues that we are here to discuss this evening are straightforward. When Mr. Burke and other parents altered the Wimberley Texans logo and used it for an LGBTQ pride march and also to engage in criticism and comment on Facebook, they were engaging in core political speech on a matter of public concern that is clearly shielded by the First Amendment. In response to this speech, Wimberley ISD threatened legal action against them and treated this speech far differently and more forcefully than all other uses and alterations of the Wimberley ISD logos. These actions were unlawful under the federal constitution, and copyright and trademark law do not apply for the reasons that we'll state below. If you have any trouble hearing me or if I go out, please feel free to interrupt me during this presentation, since we're here to answer your questions and to help you understand some of the legal issues going on. Can everyone hear me okay thus far? Okay, perfect. So for the first time since this controversy began, you now have an opportunity as the Board of Trustees to decide this matter and to also put it to rest. By granting this grievance, Wimberley ISD may still enforce its intellectual property rights in other ways, but the district will also take a stand to respect the First Amendment freedoms of every Wimberley parent and resident, and no longer devote time and resources to threatening parents with cease and desist letters simply for voicing support for LGBTQ students in Wimberley schools. Briefly, I want to give a little background on how we got here. Most of you are already familiar with the details of what has happened since the Wimberley LGBTQ Pride March. So in particular, I want to focus on the perspective of Mr. Burke. Like every parent, he wants what's best for his daughter and her friends. He wants students to feel safe, supported, and respected in Wimberley schools, regardless of their gender identity or sexual orientation. So on September 25th, he made a post on Facebook, which you can see on page 2 of the level 3 appeal. On page 2 of the level 3 appeal, he made this post with the altered rainbow LGBTQ logo and said, quote, "I proudly stand beside those in our community and schools who have felt marginalized and often bullied because of who they are. We are Wimberley, and this is no place for hate. The greatest is love." So that's the speech in which Mr. Burke is trying to engage, and that's what this grievance is all about. A couple months later, Mr. Burke received an email from Superintendent York, which is on page 4 of the same grievance appeal. You'll notice that this email that was sent on December 18th from the superintendent to Mr. Burke starts off with mentioning the district's copyright and implying that Mr. Burke may be violating the district's copyright. The letter also, in the second paragraph and third paragraph, goes into a threat of legal action. The letter says, "We request that you immediately take down the altered Texan logo on social media or in print. Failure to do so by January 6th will result in a cease and desist letter from the WISD attorney." So what caused such a kind and supportive message for LGBTQ students in Wimberley schools to be met with a threat of legal action? We have a couple clues. First, as soon as the LGBTQ Pride March took place, a few people in the community were upset and they urged Superintendent York to take action. Some of these individuals posted publicly on their Facebook page and called for people to push the superintendent to crack down on this particular use of the logo. Within only days of the Pride March, Superintendent York did just that. He followed the guidance that he was receiving from community concerns and sent a district-wide email to everyone in the district talking about the logo use in this particular case. You'll see that same letter also in our grievance forms that was submitted in September. In this email, the superintendent claims that the district, quote, "will always protect the official marks and logo of Wimberley ISD and will not approve the brand's use in any altered format." So this is an important point. At the very beginning, the superintendent, pushed by public pressure, really, and even you heard tonight in a lot of the comments, that people were really upset by the alteration of the logo. They don't want the logo to change. They love how it is just now. But when you actually look around the Wimberley community at the businesses that use this logo, it turns out that they've almost always changed and transformed it. One of the slides I was going to show you, which is in the grievance document, is the picture of the Texans car wash. You'll see that that logo, that business that many of you probably drive by every day, has actually changed and altered the logo in a major way. They put 3 big words and fonts and big fonts that say Texans car wash and altered the Wimberley logo. Similarly, also on page 3 of our grievance forms, you'll see 3 other pictures of different transformed and altered logos that are in use in the Wimberley community. All 3 of these have the W and T, which is part of the Wimberley's trademarks and that's part of the flag logo. And they also have religious symbols, including crosses, and they have the words, "Blessed to be a Texan." To our knowledge, no one in the community created any uproar about these uses of the logo. No one pushed the superintendent to take action in response to these alterations. And to our knowledge, the superintendent never sent any district-wide email about the alterations that were going on for these other uses of the logo. There's one more clue that we also look at for why this legal action was happening. The superintendent was being pressured by people in the community to take this action. And on December 6th, one of these individuals posted on Facebook that she had just gotten off the phone with Superintendent York. And he said, "We are indeed going to enforce the trademark." And this person said, "If that's true, this is another win. The logo is coming down." So that's what this is all about. People in the community did not like the content and the views expressed by Mr. Burke and other parents. The district responded to their concerns by taking action. And regardless of what the district's actual motivations were, the fact that they're based on those concerns from members of the public is content and viewpoint discrimination. The district itself doesn't need to have a sinister motive for actually wanting to suppress Mr. Burke's speech. What courts look to in these First Amendment cases is that they're responding to this content, to this viewpoint. Even based on community concerns, that is still First Amendment discrimination and retaliation. The email that the superintendent sent on December 18th, less than 2 weeks after this person got off the phone with the superintendent claiming that it's a win, had its intended effect. After this email was sent to people who still had this logo on their Facebook pages, many community members and parents in Wimberley took this post down, and their voices were silenced and their speech was chilled. Mr. Burke still has this post up on his Facebook account, but he lives in fear that any day the district could take legal action against him. The district could send him a cease and desist letter. And what that typically means in common vernacular is that the district might take other stronger measures against him, like filing a lawsuit. By threatening legal action against Mr. Burke and other parents, Wimberley ISD has violated their freedom of speech in 3 ways. First, parents' speech has been unlawfully chilled and suppressed. As a government entity, Wimberley ISD cannot stop people from voicing their opinions, even when those opinions are critical of the district itself. The Constitution and the First Amendment guarantee that everyone in our society may voice concerns and criticism against the government. Indeed, this is the very bedrock of our democracy. Second, the district has unlawfully discriminated against the content of Mr. Burke's speech. In our society, the government cannot pick and choose which speech to allow and which speech to suppress. The Supreme Court has said that the freedom of expression must be guaranteed equally to the ideas that we hate, or sooner or later, it will be denied to the ideas we cherish. In this case, the government responded forcefully to Mr. Burke's speech and threatened him with legal action. Yet there is no evidence that the district took equally powerful action against other uses and alterations of the district logos. This amounts to content and viewpoint discrimination in violation of the First Amendment. Third, the district has impermissibly retaliated against Mr. Burke and other parents for engaging in constitutionally protected speech. When someone voices criticism or comment against the government or engages in speech that the government doesn't like, the government cannot take any action against them, if that is what has happened here. Wimberley ISD has violated Mr. Burke's First Amendment rights in these 3 ways, but it still has a chance to remedy this harm. By affirming this grievance and issuing a formal retraction of this email, the district can ensure that the First Amendment freedoms of every parent in the district and every student are fully respected. This is important to all of us, since if we whittle away at the First Amendment rights of some people, then sooner or later, the First Amendment rights of all of us become diminished. The dozens of court cases that we cite in the grievance letters on behalf of Mr. Burke not only protect the rights of LGBTQ students and their parents, but also protect religious liberty and the rights of Christians and people of every faith to exercise their religion in schools and other environments. If the district chooses to ignore Mr. Burke's First Amendment rights in this case, it will irreparably damage not only his freedom of speech, but everyone's. You'll notice in the level 2 grievance decision before you that the district barely talks at all about the First Amendment. And that's because the overwhelming majority, all of the cases we cited, overwhelmingly support Mr. Burke's right to use this altered logo. Instead, the district frames and focuses its arguments on trademark law, but those don't hold any water. First, the very purpose of trademark law is to protect against consumer confusion about goods and services in the commercial marketplace. For example, if you own a store called Wimberley Shoe Company, and I start a store called Wimberley Shoe Co., then you might have a trademark claim against me for causing confusion about the source of goods and services in the commercial marketplace. Wimberley ISD actually admits that trademark law is generally limited to the commercial context on page 4 of its grievance decision, but then seems to ignore this fact for the rest of its analysis. But federal courts have been very clear that trademark law does not displace the First Amendment, nor could it, because the Constitution is supreme over all other laws. Although trademark law can be used to protect the district marks in a commercial setting, it does not apply to core political speech on a matter of public concern when engaging in comment and criticism, which is exactly what's going on here. And the district has not cited a single court case that would allow it to take the action that it is trying to do to suppress Mr. Burke's First Amendment rights. A few examples really help illustrate what trademark law is all about and how the district can keep enforcing its logos, but not in this case. For example, if I wanted to make a lot of money and I wanted to sell a lot of Wimberley ISD merchandise and athletic gear, and I took the district logos and started selling all this merchandise, the district could likely sue me because consumers in the marketplace would actually be confused about the source of goods in a commercial setting. Similarly, if another school district or a private school takes Wimberley ISD's name or logo and tries to start recruiting students and parents to go to that school, that would also cause confusion in the marketplace. But if I take Wimberley ISD's logo and put it onto a protest sign to criticize or comment on the district's new bond proposal, the district can take no action against me because this is purely political and non-commercial speech that simply is not covered by the Lanham Act, which is the federal statute governing trademark law, and it's protected by the First Amendment. It's important to remember that the very name, Wimberley ISD, itself is subject to trademark protection. Trademark covers names, like the shoe company example. So under the district's current theory of how trademark can usurp the First Amendment, which it can't, you and I could not even use the name Wimberley ISD to protest, criticize, or comment on the district. That's how far the trademark protection would extend if you stop people like Mr. Burke from using this logo to engage in criticism or comment. That makes no sense. That's not how trademark law works, and trademark law cannot usurp the First Amendment. These very same principles also apply with equal force to copyright law. Yes.
Excuse me, sir. I apologize for the interruption. I just want to check with the board secretary on time, available time.
42 seconds.
Sorry?
40 seconds.
I don't know if you could hear that, Mr. Klosterbrauer. There's 40 seconds left of your presentation.
Great, thank you. So these same principles apply with copyright law. And you'll remember that at the very beginning, the superintendent said they were trying to enforce copyright law, but they have since largely abandoned those arguments because this is clearly falls within the fair use doctrine. The fact that the rationale has changed over time, at the beginning was about altering the logo to copyright law, now to trademark law, shows that from the very beginning, this was not about a neutral or fair enforcement of intellectual property rights. This was always about responding to those community concerns about this particular viewpoint and this particular speech. And that is clearly unconstitutional under the First Amendment. We ask that you affirm this grievance and allow Mr. Burke to keep using this altered logo without fear of legal retaliation from the district. The district has a chance tonight to end this dispute and to respect the First Amendment freedoms of Mr. Burke and every other parent in Wimberley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klosterbauer. The administration may now proceed with its presentation. It's 7:48 p.m.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the members of the Board of Trustees. We're happy to be here this evening and help to clarify this situation, shed some light on this situation, and put this controversy into the right context to begin with. I noticed in Mr. Klosterbauer's presentation near the end when he was talking about the realm of trademark law, he mentioned that, number one, the WISD name would be a protectable trademark, when in fact it would not. WISD would be the designation for the Wimberley Independent School District and the naming of this entity. Under trademark law, that's not a protectable mark. That aside, every example that he gave of taking the WISD Texan logo and putting it on a protest banner or a sign or a t-shirt that included words of protest, all included a non-altered logo. This case is extremely different. We have said from the outset, when first approached by the ACLU regarding this issue, that it has never been the intent of Wimberley Independent School District to stifle the speech, to quash the speech, to discriminate against any viewpoint or any message that's out there. We provided a number of alternatives that could have been taken to express support for LGBTQ issues by the protesters, whether they be students, parents, community members, that could involve use of the Wimberley logo, as Mr. Klosterbauer mentions, but without alteration of the logo. The logo is the brand of Wimberley Independent School District. It has been the brand for a long time. It has been the logo, and it has been protected since its inception by common law trademark law. Yes, it is only recently that the district endeavored to go ahead and protect it on the Federal Register of Trademarks. That was at the advice of counsel in order to provide additional statutory protections to the logo, additional statutory remedies for anyone who decides to use the logo in an unauthorized manner. This board is the arbitrator and the one in charge of how the Wimberley ISD logo is to be used. You adopted as a board CY Local, which is the policy, the board policy set forth for the protection of intellectual property owned by the district. And let's be very clear, under the Texas Government Code, a school district, a public school district, is allowed to own both real and personal property, and a personal property in this case would be the trademark, the WISD logo and the flag logo. In addition to the CY Local policy, there is a 16-page logo use and guidelines that is available on the WISD website, which sets forth all acceptable uses of the logo. It's also allowed that in our CY Local that we have kept that logo use to members of the Wimberley ISD community, whether it be the school itself, athletics, band, theater, student organizations, regardless of message. If they choose to use the logo, they are allowed to use it in promoting their clubs, their activities. The LGBTQ, if there's an LGBTQ club, they could certainly use the Wimberley logo, the Texan flag logo as it stands, as part of their name and a part of their advertising their community, however they want to use it to show support. What is not authorized by CY Local is the ability to alter the use of the trademark for any reason. And I know that Mr. Klosterbauer is focusing this on the First Amendment, and the reason that the level 2 grievance decision issued by the administration did not go into a lot of the free speech issues is because this is not a free speech issue. No one is trying to quash the message. No one is trying to discriminate against the students. No one is trying to retaliate against anyone for their LGBTQ stance. This whole situation could have been avoided if prior to the Pride Parade, someone had come up to the superintendent, someone had come to the board and said, hey, will the school district allow us to use this logo in this way? And if we'd said no, can we work together to come up with a reasonable alternative? Some way that you can express that you are a Wimberley Texan and proud of your affiliation with Wimberley Independent School District, and you are a supporter of LGBTQ. That never happened. Instead, this was sprung on the district. All of a sudden, the district is faced with Facebook posts and an altered logo that they never authorized. Not by the administration, not by the board, and permission was never sought by anybody pursuant to the clear guidelines set forth by CY Local to allow for use of the mark. The situation that we're running up against is that if we allow the use of the logo as Mr. Klosterbauer suggests, then anyone can alter the WISD logo for any reason and any political message. And so my fear is that if the board were to grant the relief that Mr. Burke is requesting, you will be flooded with the Wimberley Texan logo with the flag altered in support of the Second Amendment, with Nazi swastikas, with hate-filled speech, with hate-filled messages, with anti-LGBTQ insignia, whatever you can imagine. The Pandora's box is open. Anything that is imaginable to be changed on that logo could be changed and done so under the auspices of free speech. That is not to say that someone couldn't use the WISD logos and say, we are criticizing WISD's stance on its treatment of Black students, on its treatment of LGBTQ students, on its treatment of women, on its treatment of Asians, on its treatment of any color. They are allowed to do that. I will concede that to Mr. Klosterbauer. They are allowed to use the WISD logo as it stands in any form of political speech. And you as a board have no power to change that. What you do have the power to do is enforce your trademark rights. And your trademark rights are an exclusionary right. They give you the right to exclude other uses other than what you have authorized. CY Local provides the authorizations that this board has approved for the use of these marks. CY Local states who can use the marks and under what circumstances within the Wimberley ISD community, and requests from outside the Wimberley ISD community. In other words, community members who might want to use the logo for their own purposes. For example, a intramural sports organization approached the district asking to use the Wimberley Texan logo, and they were declined the opportunity to do so. Are there writings on this? Probably not, because a lot of this does happen with a simple phone call. Mr. Klosterbauer criticizes the district for not putting forth any legal case that says that the district is allowed to do that. The reason is that no such case exists. And I would point out that the ACLU has not identified a single case where someone has altered a logo of a government entity, school or otherwise, and successfully challenged that in court as an acceptable free speech right. Yes, the cases that he cites do support LGBTQ students' right to speak, their right to wear rainbow logos in school, their right to wear rainbow apparel, to wear shirts that express religious messages, shirts that express messages for Second Amendment rights, for all other things. But they don't directly address the altered use of a school logo for political speech. Those cases simply aren't out there. And the case that you'll see in the paper submitted by the ACLU and that we have addressed in the response to the grievance is one known as Radiance. The Radiance case was a situation where the NAACP logo was used in an altered way, and that alteration was allowed to stand. Now, the interesting thing about the case is there is a passage worth noting in that case, and the court specifically says that while the infringer had the right to use the NAACP logo in its altered form for purposes of political criticism of the organization, they did also say, we need not go so far as to say that social commentary solicitations can never be the subject of a valid infringement claim in order to conclude that it will not be infringing so long as the use of the mark does not create confusion as to source, sponsorship, or affiliation. That is the concern of Wimberley Independent School District, is whether or not there's going to be a false sense of endorsement of any message that the altered logo shows up on. That's why the board has been vested with the rights to enforce its trademarks, to take whatever action it needs to take to stop altered uses of its trademarks. And this is not a free speech issue. Wimberley Independent Superintendent York has met with some students from the LGBT community since this has all happened, has asked them about the logo, has asked about whether or not we could work together to come up with an alternative. And quite frankly, the students who are most affected have said, we're not really concerned about the logo. Yeah, we want to be able to express our LGBTQ support, but we don't care about this rainbow logo. And so, quite frankly, all of this time and all of this effort could have been easily avoided if someone had picked up the phone ahead of time and said, hey, Superintendent York, we'd like to participate in the LGBTQ Pride Parade. Is there any way that we can work together to have the support of the school, show the support of the district, that WISD is in support of LGBTQ issues and is responsive to them? The district would have bent over backwards to try and help and allow that message to be heard in a supportive way. What is not allowed is the alteration of the mark and the use of it in an unauthorized manner that has not been provided for by the administration, by the policies of this board, or quite frankly, by trademark law. And so with that, I would urge you to uphold the level 2 grievance findings provided by the administration, deny the request for relief, because quite frankly, the biggest fear is the Pandora's box that could be opened if we allow the rainbow flag text and logo to continue to be displayed. It opens up the door for any other organization to alter your logos and use them in a manner inconsistent with the message and the educational goals of Wimberley Independent School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. At this time, Mr. Burke, you have 5 minutes to present a rebuttal or closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and thank you, members of the Board of Trustees. The first thing I'd like to start off by, talking about how, the council for the district says this is not a free speech issue. It is very concerning that the district is not taking seriously the First Amendment issues at stake. They talk about the Pandora's box that could be opened if others are allowed to use the trademarks and logos in this way. But conversely, there's a huge Pandora's box once the district starts whittling away at the First Amendment rights of parents and students in the district. The free speech at issues here are very clear, as we've discussed, that the district has taken action far more forcefully against Mr. Burke and the parents using this particular logo than any other logo that we know of in the Wimberley community. There are quite a number of cases that we cited in the papers before you all, which actually are cases in which schools have been held liable for very similar issues here. It's very telling that the attorney for the district can't point to a single case that would allow the district to take this kind of action. And that's because it's clearly unconstitutional. It doesn't exist. Wimberley ISD does not want or need to be known for a path-breaking case to show that this is clearly unconstitutional, when many other districts have probably looked at the same kind of fact pattern and said there's no point for the district trying to suppress this free speech right, because that would also affect the rights of other students. Mr. Smith talks about his fear that other groups might start using the logo in other ways. First Amendment cases are often somewhat fact-specific and would depend on the particular issues in that case. There could be issues of threats or hate speech if a group like the Nazis was using the logo for something like that, but the board here only has to consider the grievance before it, which is the exact kind of speech and post that Mr. Burke was using, which is a message of love and support for LGBTQ students, and also criticism of the district for not providing a safe and affirming environment for these students. Such criticism is clearly protected by the First Amendment. Trademark and copyright law do not apply. The one situation that Mr. Smith mentioned about the sports league, we don't know the facts of that, but it sounds very different from what's at issue here. that would go to confusion in the marketplace. Perhaps the sports league is a commercial entity where people pay money for sports. And Wimberley itself has its own sports team, so there could be confusion about the actual goods and services in the marketplace. That's not what's going on here. Mr. Burke is not trying to sell anything or compete with Wimberley ISD in the commercial marketplace. He's merely expressing his opinions. The district's proposed solution is no solution at all. What the district has proposed is that Mr. Burke should have picked up the phone and called the superintendent to ask for permission and to talk about how he could criticize the government. That is not how it works. That's called censorship, and the First Amendment does not let that happen. If I want to criticize the government or a government official, or even just comment, or even praise, if I want to praise the school board for doing an amazing job and affirming this grievance, I don't have to call for permission. That is not how the Constitution works. It's also not how trademark law works. And the school district should not go out on a limb when there's no case at all, no court case that would support the district taking this kind of action, and to bring down the hammer on Mr. Burke, because that's going to hurt the free speech rights of every parent in Wimberley ISD, and also continue wasting potentially tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars that go to attorneys but are not going to the actual students and parents of Wimberley ISD.
1 minute, sir.
So we ask that the district affirm this grievance, that it uphold the First Amendment rights of Mr. Burke and other parents in the district, and that it retract this email so that it takes away the legal threat that is hovering over Mr. Burke and others, that has already sent a message to the members of the LGBT community at Wimberley schools that they are being treated. This speech has been treated more differently and more forcefully than other uses of the logos. And no matter what the district has done since then, that motivation is still there, and that's what a court will look to. Those comments that were made to the superintendent, the actions the superintendent took, and that is the First Amendment discrimination, retaliation, and chilling that has happened in the district. But tonight, the district has a chance to fix that, to rectify the situation, and to respect the First Amendment freedoms of Mr. Burke and other parents in his situation for years to come. I'm happy to answer any questions you all have, and thanks so much for your attention tonight.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to give the administration 5 minutes to present a rebuttal or closing remarks.
Thank you, Chairman Malone. The bottom line is we are not chilling the free speech of anyone. The message that Mr. Burke put out, I proudly stand beside those in our community and schools who felt marginalized and often bullied because of who they are, doesn't ring as criticism. It rings as a statement and an opinion, and it uses the WISD altered flag with the rainbow almost as a form of endorsement, not as a form of political criticism. But regardless of how you look at the logo and the alteration of the logo, the bottom line is they have to show that somehow there's been a chilling of free speech. Nobody's saying that the LGBTQ message cannot be out there. Nobody's saying that we don't want to hear it. Nobody's saying that we don't support the message of inclusion, of no place for hate. WISD does support that message, and it encourages its students to be politically active and to speak out and to have their opinions heard. But it also must protect its trademarks. It must protect its ability and police its trademarks for fear that it could lose them or not be able to enforce them down the road. This is not, as much as Mr. Klosterbauer wants to make this about free speech, he would have to show that somehow we are attempting to try and quell the message. The message is not trying to be quelled. The message is not going to be quashed. The message is available to be heard loud and clear, and we support those students and those parents and those community members who want to proudly wave the rainbow flag in support of pride and in support of LGBTQ issues. Just do it without altering the logo. And that is a case that has not come up. And that is a case that Mr. Klosterbauer hasn't been able to point to because it's not out there. The use of a government or a school district's logo in an altered fashion for political speech just simply has not been before the courts. What has been before the courts is situations where logos have been used for criticism. And yes, I agree, they can be used for criticism. They certainly can be. However, when they're altered, that changes the landscape a little bit. And while the NAACP case is close, It's walking on very narrow ground. And as Mr. Klosterbauer said, these cases come down to very fact-specific situations. The facts in this case do not support a First Amendment claim. No one ever approached the administration to even discuss the issue prior to altering the logo and just putting it out there. Nobody has addressed the administration in terms of what is your stance, what is your support or not support of LGBTQ students. And had that happened, that simple phone call, then thousands of taxpayer dollars could have been saved by avoiding everything that we've had to go through to get here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Does that conclude your remarks?
It does, thank you.
Prior to concluding the presentations, are there any questions from the board for either party?
No questions from us.
Okay. At this time, it's 8:09. The board will now meet in closed session to deliberate and consult with legal counsel. The board will reconvene in open session for possible action on the appeal. The audio recording of the grievance appeal can now be stopped until the board reconvenes in open session. Okay, it's 10:52 and board has concluded its closed session, coming out of closed session to open session for possible action. I will now call for a motion on the appeal. Is there a motion regarding the grievance appeal?
Mr. President, Will Connolly, I will make a motion and move to deny the requested remedies, but direct no other action be taken with regards to the grievance related to the grievance.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none.
I'll say one thing. I just want to make sorry, I just wanted, this is Lori Olson. I just wanted to take a moment to express that I take very seriously my commitment on the WISD Board of Trustees, and I value this community and this group of people that I work with, and that I know that we are all doing the best that we can to move our community forward and to make the best decisions that we can. And that's what I'm gonna say for that. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, that's unanimous, Dottie. At this time, while the board had an opportunity to discuss these issues at length in executive session, I've requested that Trustee Olson express our collective opinion on these issues as they stand today.
Thanks, Joe. I did unmute. Can you hear me? Okay. This is a statement from the WISD Board of Trustees, May the 20th, 2020. The WISD Board of Trustees would like to take this opportunity to address the logo issue that has been debated in our community over the past few months. We do recognize that our district can improve in clearly communicating our intentions, goals, and navigating district policy enforcement measures. We are saddened by the division we have witnessed in our community over this subject matter. This divisiveness is not a reflection of our board's stated goals and policies, nor does it reflect daily practices of our administration and staff. We have carefully watched and listened to many of our citizens over the past few months. We have had these issues legally vetted from many different aspects and taken sensible consideration of our district's time, resources, and taxpayer dollars. After this thorough evaluation, we believe we have come to a point of better clarity and wish to articulate our position to our administration and community. We believe the logo for WISD is a protected trademark of WISD. If our logo is used or altered in any unauthorized way, we strongly believe we have a right to defend our trademark. Our policy, which is common to districts around the state, provides that our logo be used for its strict intended purpose of representing our great district. That said, and although we may not agree with any of these unofficial or unapproved uses of our trademark, we also acknowledge that our district has limited time and resources. Therefore, we choose to maximize our time and resources toward higher priorities, particularly in the face of the current pandemic health crisis that has gripped our communities, our nation, and the world. Most notably, our focus is and will remain on all of our children receiving the best educational opportunities that we can afford them in the safest, most positive environment that we can provide. The WISD Board of Trustees directs that no further action be taken against any individuals related to the WISD Texan Rainbow Flag logo being considered today. We support our LGBTQ+ community within our district, as we do all our students, and we will continue to make additional efforts to ensure that all feel welcome, safe, and supported. We have already made great strides in this area over the past 6 months, and we will proceed enthusiastically with those efforts and programs. The district will continue to evaluate any future logo or trademark issues on a case-by-case basis under the guidelines of the above stated principles, the existing policies of our district, and those set forth in state and federal law. We collectively ask that the WISD administration and our entire Wimberley community move forward as well and focus on how we can continue to improve our wonderful school district for the betterment of all our students and the enrichment of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Another motion? Or this grievance is now concluded. It's 10:58 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to just make a request that the statement that Ms. Olson read be given to our public relations people and our administration, and we have that sent out to the appropriate venues as a statement from our board.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks,
Good suggestion, Will. At this time, I'll conclude this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.